look all right.
Beautiful. Hello, amigo. Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram. And this is fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 662. I got a great guest for you this evening. Mr. Alec 622. Between the two, I got tongue-tied there. That's so similar. Sorry, my friend. This is episode 662, and this is Alec 622. Oh, and twice I'm sorry, my friend.
I got that name when I went to work for High Times as the that was like my call on the radio. But hey, well, thanks for having me on the show. It's good to be here. Hopefully we talk about something exciting. Basically, I'm a rainbow hippie, and one year this guy named Steve Hager came to the Rainbow Gathering to interview people. He interviewed me in my teepee, and a baby was being born. Another guy's head had to be sewn up. It was really quite a little adventure there. And so Steve Hager was impressed enough that he sent me an anonymous invitation to come to the 6th Cannabis Cup. Now that's like 1994, so that's a long time ago. So I didn't know how I was going to do it. So I made all this hemp seed salve out of real hemp seed oil that we got from a source of Bulgaria. Couldn't get it in the United States back then. DEA was spreading rumors about it being illegal, because it had THC in it, but that was all just yellow journalism, yellow acts, So I premiered on the Cannabis Cup scene with the 10,000 ounces of hemp seed oil salve. I was like one of the first producers of it. And now there's a lot of people are making that product now. Even now they can put THC if we could only done that back then. So I went to work for High Times. I was like the czar of security. I was like the photographer for a lot of centerfolds for many years. I was there for 20 years. Until Steve Hager retired and the movie ended and everything got legal here in Colorado. And nobody wants to travel to Europe anymore. But back in the day, it was the day. And, so we used to fly from, I hope you find this interesting, but we used to fly from the magazine and fly over into Iceland and then fly into, as a crew, all the High Times people. And later on, we just traveled there from there at different locales. But it was quite like the Gidget Goes to Hollywood, kind of like a real, a stoner movie that should have been shot at that time. Steve Hager brought along a set of twins, and they were in film production. One was, and that's how they made one of the first Cannabis Cup history, 1 and 2. But then. Basically, what happened was all those seed companies took off. That's what made, seed companies had to have somewhere where they could sell their seeds and their products. And so Holland was the place. I mean, there was a club they used to have there. It was called the Milk Fig, and it still is there. And that was the first coffee shop that they had in Amsterdam. And it was right across the street from the police station. So the police would come over there and give it. Us guys with the weed come over there and give it to the people at the Milk Fig, and then they'd get into the show for free, or whatever. They had a very symbiotic relationship there. So it was an old dairy, but the Cannabis Cup was held there many, many times for all the years there. It was like award ceremonies and things. Sometimes it was really big acts. I guess. I won a Cannabis Cup too for Product of the Year. So that was kind of, not many. I thought I'd win it for my hemp seed salve, but it was really a microscope, and it revolutionized inspecting weed and the quality of weed that could be inspected in the field. Because, there's some guys, like I would say in the UK, that take soda, just clear soda like 7-Up with no carbonation in it, and put glass in it, and then spray down the weed. And then they get extra bulk and extra weight on that. And there was a lot of tricks in the way that Amsterdam was, in the business of, that business, a gray business to a white business, because if you grow the weed, that's black market. You bring it to the coffee shop, and up until the moment that it reaches the back door, as they say, it's black market. And then once it hits, then they can tax it, and that's why it was tolerated at the time. It was all about the tax money and stuff. The Dutch, they're very tolerant people, but they still thought that smoking weed was kind of like, they like their tobacco and beer, and cocaine. Not sweeping generalization. I just know a lot of Dutch people after living there. I really miss Holland, but after 20 cups or 21 cups, it's just a lot of stories. Like one time, 60 Minutes came across with us. Coming across when they flew over with us, and then they shot a whole full feature around there with Morty Schaefer. He showed up the last day to do the voiceovers, and there was this guy that still is a guy. Do you know Mark Emery? No, but Todd McCormick.
Yeah, I've heard the name.
Oh, okay. Well, he was challenging the federal law that if you have a doctor in a foreign country prescribe something that's readily prescribed in the native country that you're in, you can bring across 6 months worth of weed. So that's why 60 Minutes was there, and they came across the border there. They showed them that law. They showed them the prescription. They showed them the dope, and they let them through. Yeah, internationally coming across like that. But this was like what, 1996 or 7, something like that, 98. So, it was a big event back in those days that became such a big event that the police department built a police department, a station house right next door to where the cup was having all the time. But there wasn't really not a lot of violence. I can only remember a couple times anybody just got ugly. But it was just such a gift for people to be there. Totally gift. Everybody's on their best behavior. It was like a real circus kind of atmosphere. Because
so before we get in too deep, I guess, to some of these great stories here, we usually start this off right from the beginning. We kind of jumped ahead of, I'm guessing, probably about 20 some years. But when was the first time you smoked or came across the plant? When was the first time you used cannabis? When did cannabis come into your life? You got to walk us up 2 high times. You kind of jumped in with both feet. Okay, I'm sure you were using the plant before high times now.
Well, I was a track star back in high school in the 70s. I ran for the Muhammad Ali track team because I was the third fastest high school kid in America. And so I ran for him, that team, and then in the Denver Powell. But so I got out of high school. The day we got out of high school, the Associated Press and the United Press, they were here in Denver to shoot the U.S. Open, the Golf Open. And so this is basically the way I got into photography. So they assigned us kids, as runners, because they have us run the shots back and forth between the developing trailer and the photographer. So the guy took me out on the 5th hole, which, even in disc golf, the 5th hole is like where people get high on it. Oops. All you guys out there, sorry, I'm on the wrong hole. It's just but anyway, so he told me how to shoot the camera. You put the head and the feet in it. You don't click on the backswing. He said, "No, go there and shoot Arnold Palmer." And I went, "What?" So that was here I am, stoned out of my mind, and he sends me over to shoot Arnold Palmer because Andy Beams. Little details there, but that the next day he doesn't come to work. And they said, "Kid, do you know how to shoot?" And I said, "Sure." And that was my very first job ever. First time I ever got high was I shot as a photographer for Associated Press. It's 1978. Cut. What do you call it? Yeah. Anyway, what is it? It's the cup. It's the golf cup. I forget what it is. I wasn't into it.
I'm not much golfer either. But.
Yeah. So
So it sounded like you were it put into fate right off the begin to be a cannabis photographer.
Yeah. I wasn't so smart though. It took me like a while to do that, to figure it out. I went to college and being a cannabis photographer wasn't even it. Who would have ever thought? I mean, so, but anyway, so I became a sports photographer and did my internship at the Rocky Mountain News, and so I had a really good time. Photography has brought me a lot of good gigs, Or on the White Mountain Independent down in Arizona. It was really like Colorado without all the people. Excuse me, I'm going to smoke one.
Oh, please do.
So the night about
Photography. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're the guest. I don't mean to cut you off.
Well, I'm just trying not to blab, But the nice thing about being, and then so High Times made this the WE Festival, which was the World Hemp Expo and Extravaganza, and that was like an outdoor event. And since I had 3 teepees that I brought together, John Trudell and everybody, all the old founders of AIM, the American Indian Movement, and his band, they all stayed in the teepees. But and that was when I first met old Ken Kesey. Ken Kesey, he's the guy that wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He's also the guy that has the Merry Pranksters with the Further Bus. And he's just really quite the, well, did you ever read the book One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? See the movie? No.
I seen the movie. I didn't read the book.
Okay. So, yeah, anyway. So he was doing his internship he was doing a side job working on his master's degree in literature, because he was big, though. He was a bouncer in a local mental institution. And so they paid him $25. This is the 60s. So they paid him $25 and they locked him inside a padded cell. And they'd give him psilocybin or LSD or something like that, a different weekend, a different test he was going through. And some of it's never slipped out, like a lot of acid slipped out. And so that's what it started. There was a little band called the Warlocks, which were the Grateful Dead later became, and they played the music, and Timothy Leary sat on the floor and pontificated, and you could buy the ticket, and it said had a little dark black spot on the ticket, and it says "Lick Me," and that was your trip. So that was when acid was legal. I can imagine that today. You go to a show and you lick the corner of your ticket, and all of a sudden, man, I don't know. People are so uptight anymore. I think they need to express their mind a little bit, expand their mind. I don't know. So, well,
I
what do you?
too. I'm glad that mushrooms are being kind of brought back and pushed to the forefront. I do and have taken acid on quite a few occasions, but unless it was kind of coming from a credible source, you know what I mean? I'm still a little leery. But mushrooms, I'm good with mushrooms. Natural, the natural way of tripping there.
Yeah. Well, isn't there more toxins though in mushrooms than and say 100 micrograms of something else.
You may be right there. You may be right.
I mean, isn't that how they used to get like flying reindeer? They would like feed the mushrooms, the amanita muscaria to the reindeer, and then they drain off their urine, and that's where they drink that, and that's where the myth comes, or the myth comes from the flying reindeer. Seriously, and they use the kidneys of the reindeer to like filter out the deal. Sorry, but it's true. They were real big.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's Google it. You can check it out for sure. Flying reindeer. That's why they call them flying reindeer. And, but, probably, that's pretty like tasty. I don't know what you would call it though. But yeah, I think it's going to have a lot of therapeutic effects on people because it's I believe psilocybin is a real teacher plant. So that was really the Rainbow Gathering. It's going to be in Colorado this year, the 50th anniversary, and so it's the first one was in 1972. So it was in Colorado as well. There should be a lot of people coming home.
Sounds like an interesting festival. 50 years it's been running. Is there a certain
50
location?
Well, every year it's a different national forest, and it's from the 1st through the 7th of July, with the 4th of July being the real high holy day when everybody holds hands and have from morning till noon, sun up till noon, silence, the silence of all these people not speaking. Some of them can't stand not to, but it's pretty much overwhelming once you come there, and the silence is so loud, it's deafening. It's just so it's crazy. Everybody's so it's like a bunch of batteries hooked up together. And, I've been there in different states of consciousness. Both through meditation and straight. And this one time I was just straight as and we were holding hands. And this kid next to me, his young brother, he let go because he was really like a fusible link in like in a car, and electrical out thing where that fuses open because it's handling too much juices through it. Well, that's pretty much what this kid was doing. All of a sudden, he breaks. He lets go of my hand, and I swear, out of my hand, it looked like a Doctor Strange, yellow and blue and gold and red lights just shooting out my hand. And the girl standing next to him, she saw that, and she looked at me, and we couldn't believe it happened. So she grabbed it because it was important that happened. But it was just like it was really. I'm glad I can tell it to you. The story was saying I was straight at the time. But it's really a happening thing. So, I know that just sounds like old hippie lore, but hippie stands for happy, intelligent person pursuing infinite enlightenment. So hippies are I don't know. I used to be practicing inner environment. So how does this channel make money? Does it make good money? I mean, do you have contributors or subscribers, or how do you do that? Not to ask you your business. I'm just.
I don't necessarily.
Oh,
That's fine. That's fine. No, I've tried to go out of my way to do this pro bono, to be honest with you. I have taken on, as of late, a little bit of sponsorship that helped out with some computers and some cameras at one point. But I try to stay away from the whole making the money off it, to be honest with you.
Right.
I like to do it because I love it. And I feel like if I start taking the money, then it becomes a job or a commitment. And you know how that goes. You know, once things are a job or commitment, it's kind of takes the fun out of it. You know what I mean?
I'm with you,
So
brother.
as
I'm with
long
you.
as I can possibly do it, I'm gonna keep doing it because I love it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's important. You do what you love and love what you do, and that's really, I think, important of a person's life. So, but then, everything's free at the Rainbow Gathering. I mean, free food, free, camping, free love, not sex, but free love, and it's just, all the way that, health food and herbalism, and how that made a big shoot in the last 30 or 40 years. It's because of the gathering in the Rainbow people that took it throughout. It was before the computer. They were like the viral, and sometimes they were a viral influence in their own society that they took it back to. It's like, and so I think a lot of the more modern thought processes and way things are due to the hippies. But, there's still war, but that's unfortunate. No war, right?
So did the first initial time with cannabis there open up the door for the other stuff, or did that kind of happen before? How does all that transpire?
That was the first time I ever got high. It was right then, but it wasn't like the next time I got high. It wasn't. They say you don't get high the first time. You really get high. Smoke, And I kind of believe that. That was the first time I ever smoked. This guy was right out of Vietnam. He was like, the photographer. He was just, the station chief in Saigon. So that was like, the hyper dude in photography world. I mean, and so the war was over. So basically, he had to do something, and he hooked up with one of my friend's mom came and picked us up, and he hooked up with her. Like, it was the 70s, so people were like more friendly. Yeah. And so he didn't come to work the next day because they hung out together, and he missed his call. So that's how I got the job. But it really didn't affect me as much as the next time. I was
So how do
commercial
you
guy.
go from there? I'm sorry to cut you.
Oh, please go ahead, please.
I was just gonna, I'm just still kind of curious how you go from a golf green, cannabis, first time golf cannabis time there on the golf green taking photos, to a ayahuasca tent and you're meeting Steve Hagar. I mean, that's quite the jump. That's quite the jump from a serious runner to, hanging out in the ayahuasca tent. How do you get down that path, I guess? Is it, I guess, I heard you mention the phrase teacher plant. You know what I mean? So at some point, did herbal remedies or that type of approach kind of seep in as well, all at once, maybe?
Right. Well, I got a teepee, so that was really the start of the path, and then the Rainbow Gathering taught me a lot about herbs, and I married a nurse, and and that pretty much, and then we'd go to the gathering. And rainbow medicine is like it's a different form of medicine in some ways, But anyway, but so getting back to that, it's once again, it's a happening event and it attracts. And Steve Hager wanted to go and see what was happening. This was maybe his second gathering. He took a big bus one time to the Freedom Fighters, a school bus full of dancing girls and speakers. And they went from up and down the East Coast, kind of like many pranksters did. And then the Merry Pranksters, they're the ones that really brought to. There were two philosophies of basically LSD, and that philosophy that there was the East Coast, which was like the Middlebrook estate, and they had people pushing around purple eggs with their nose, thinking they were high, and then they'd give them something like in their milk in the morning, make them really high. To the West Coast philosophy of the Merry Pranksters, where they thought that LSD was a party drug. It was open your mind up, and they hooked up with this guy named Owsley, and Owsley, Dancing Bear and the Grateful Dead sign. That's of course him. He bought 500 grams of LSD from Switzerland and brought it over here to the United States and kicked off the whole acid revolution with that. Kid Charlemagne by the Steely Dan. That's a song exclusively about him and how he cooked all of how he cooked all the LSD. So, but that's back up. That's a little strong for some people, and it's been years, but I hear that it's. It's making a resurgence with some people. I broke my ribs the other day, and I really messed them up bad. And I went to the hospital, and I got long hair and long beard, so I was in a lot of pain, and they kept me that way. So, but then they gave me some ketamine, and that was I thought that was kind of nice. But of course, they left me there, and it's like, oh. That's not very nice. They left me there by myself. Ketamine. Have you ever done that? That's a tough drug too. They give it to battlefield people because you follow orders. It doesn't, make your respiratory rate drop. It's non-addictive, but you trip balls. They didn't give me enough to get K-hold. Just enough to keep me right at that edge.
Man, bro, ribs are tough, man. That's a tough injury right there, man. Can't get comfortable. You can't get a deep breath. Oof.
So, but I'm put me out here. I think I digress back into psychedelics once again. And so, but I think, cannabis is really a very psychoactive, psychedelic drug. Just because people use it every day and they get used to it, try and go out and do some really heavy duties. Not do it for like 30 days. I mean, I know we all can't do it for 30 days, but just take a fast for 30 days. And then go and hit the hardest shit that you can, whatever, like some dabs on top of some other dabs on top of some other dabs. And if you're not throwing up and got the bends, then tell me it's not a powerful drug, because people, when they habituate and tolerate really fast with that stuff. So it's always good to rotate those cannabinoids around. Everybody needs to do that. So, yeah, it's back in the early days, like when I say the early days, the hemp industry was coming up at the same time the Cannabis Cup was coming up, and they were having hemp conferences in the Biofosch in Frankfurt, Germany. It was it was a whole complete place. I don't know, what would you call it? I guess help me out here. Not a concert hall, but where they have where they show these shows in there, like a convention center. That's what I'm trying to say, like a giant convention center. Everything was in there, was hemp. Everything. I'd never seen so much hemp products, and this was like in the 90s, the late 90s. I saw that. And I went there to test 53 different types of essential oil of hemp flower. And the Swiss scientists over there, that you can put a project that you want to work on, and the state will fund it. They'll give you the lab space. They'll give you the whatever you need, what resources, so that you can further your education. So these guys went out and planted 55 different hectares. That's 2.2 acres of hemp, 52 different types. So I got to smell those. I went to their lab in Switzerland. That was a really interesting experience to see how they, one side of the road, you have this idyllic Swiss Alp looking house. Right next to it's kind of like an industrial like factory. It's really quite a beautiful, interesting place. And have you been abroad there? No. Okay.
I have not.
Yeah. Well, it's so that's and that's the way that it began. You know, Jack Herrera, he was still alive. Of course, he's wrote the book. We know all about him. He used to rent places down here in Denver and synagogue, so he could like get maybe 100 people in there, so that they would listen to his story about the Emperor Wears No Clothes. You've seen that book. It's a great book, right? That's what kicked off the whole hemp industry for sure. Yeah. So, he'd been to two or three gatherings. Colorado, that was his last one because it was too high for him. He had to be evacuated, but that was a long time ago. That the gathering, attracts people. I mean, you're pushing it tonight. I'm just telling you, 35 years doing emergency radio communications and stuff. The Rainbow Gathering, I've seen a lot, and I give thanks. So. Well, how does a guy live in Amsterdam? You rely on the Americans. Those Americans could smell each other. Totally. What I mean by you could see one across the room, you'd know that they're an American, a loud kind of guy. So, I don't know where I'm going. I got stones. Take me back on track. No questions. No questions yet. No. Let's go on.
No, well, I like the side rant. So how do you, how is life in Amsterdam? I mean,
well, it's a nice place. I mean, the Dutch are friendly people. They're tolerant, but they only let you get in so close because you have to go home someday. It's just the way it is. Even if you get citizenship, learn the Dutch language, write to the Queen and ask her if you can be a subject. Then she says yes or no. So but that takes a lot of money. So I said, you can either go illegal or go legal, which takes all this money. And I didn't know what to do. I was just and so I stayed there for quite a few years and left the country without seeing the tax. The tax man, I'm definitely afraid of the tax people. They're very. But I was there at the end of the end of the Cannabis Cup. When it was all winding down, everything had been like sifted out. The markets were established. Ariana, the strain hunters, and Barney's. They get what was called the Cup Fever, which they had to win, and they would just go and buy tickets and give them to Dutch people so that they would vote. That I thought was kind of well, that's the tea on something there. But it was interesting. I know a guy that's what he did as a Dutch guy. He went and found people and he'd give them a ticket and they could go and vote. But I guess that's fair, isn't it? I mean, if you buy your ticket and that's I'm sure that there were other things that happened, but those guys will spend €1 million to win a Cannabis Cup. And I know it's kind of old now, but that's it'll bring you more money than it'll take to win one. each cup's worth about $2 million in revenue and seed trade and just ready to go kind of stuff. Because no matter what they have, they'll sell it as that strain. Because I've seen some coffee shops that, you're only there for a week and you come in and smoke the same stuff every day, but then you come back next year. Oh, is that the same stuff? Yeah, it's not the same stuff. It's just, but the weed here, it's legal in Michigan, right? Medical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and recreational,
Uh-huh.
which is kind of killing the medical market already.
Seriously, it does. Like here, it's only like two or three plants, strains. But weed is better though. I mean, I don't know about where you are, but the weed is definitely better just because they don't do as much. It's like 80% has to be, grown under your control, and you can buy 20%, and then recreational is just reverse. You can buy 80%, but I'm not sure. But I've been in certain dispensaries here, and the guy had 3 different jars with 3 different names on it. He comes out with a big old bag of weed, and he separates it into all 3 jars out of the same bag. Puts the lids on, puts them on the shelf. It's just like, really, you just did that in front of a customer? Well, I'm not a customer anymore. But, so I'm sure there's a little shadiness that goes on. I mean, how could there not be? It's good that it employs so many people, though. Who would have thought? Legalization is good and bad. All the people like out in California thought, well, when it goes legal, we'll be able to at least move on board and get a little bit of help or a little bit of money, but they got, big money moved in to take care of everything. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I feel like I'm just saying stuff that people have already heard before. So it's really quite. I shouldn't get high.
So
anymore.
there is, I've seen similar stuff in the cannabis industry. It's funny because I don't think at some points, hopefully they're becoming a little bit more wiser, because you don't really know who's kind of like standing on the edge of the crowd, you know what I mean, watching things go on. And I've seen that kind of similar thing as you're talking about right there in seed sales, to be honest with you. Nugs on the table and seed packs across the table there. Somebody inquire about, oh, what's this one? And that very same bud get picked up. Oh, here's a sample right here. Sniff the jar. Oh, that's nice. Look, oh, beautiful bud. It's different customer. They slide over the other end of the table, different pack of seeds. Oh, here's that very same sample. You know what I mean? Of that pack there. And I'm like, oh, that's some shady shit right there. Next booth. Yeah.
Well, people have here's the thing though. How many seed companies started out when, like, I don't know, I don't have the metrics on it, but like when it first came legal here in Colorado, how many seed companies are out there? How many seed strains are still like the same anymore? It's like in Amsterdam, at least when you knew what you were getting, like White Widow and White Shark, it was a power plant in the strain somewhere, and anything with an amnesia in it, amnesia haze or lavender cross up, you could tell what they really were. But sometimes now it's like all these different names crashed up. Uncle Jack's best cousin, I don't know how they name them, but there's just a lot of crosses here that don't really last, but it's dynamic. It's totally dynamic. You got to have that's why Aryan went looking for landrace strains, because the more of these strains get all like crossed up and crossed out, they get hermaphroditic and, but I think the real problem though is the guys trimming the weed with the machines, at least here in Colorado. They have cylinder with slats in it. I don't know what the name of it is, but they put the weed in it and it trims it because it turns like this instead of a little angle, and they come out there and it shakes all the THC and all the stuff that they can make concentrates out of already onto the thing. So they're like making two products from one source, you know. And so a lot of that weed gets like shaken off and then dried and then sold as rec, or the medical, they don't shake it off. That's the difference, I think, here. But, you know, I've just seen a lot of the weed. They've got, you know, they've got a bunch of different grows that supply a lot of weed. So it's up why. I mean, nobody really hardly
So
grows.
I'm sure you've been in a lot of cool places, a lot of amazing opportunities. So what are some of the memorable moments you've been on?
Well, there's the Cannabis
throughout
Castle
your
tour.
shoots?
Well, the shoots, you know, they were kind of frustrating because you get all this beautiful weed in front of you, and you can't smoke it because you can't get high. Because you get high, you learn to set up the order. It's like almost a little hell, you know, because then by the time you put it in the display case, and it doesn't ever come back. So, but that's okay. There was plenty, you know. But one time they, in the early days, like around the 8th cup, they had the Cannabis Castle tour, and that was made by Cincy Seed, old Ben Dronkers and Alan Dronkers out there. And it was in Ramagen, which was a famous World War II battle place. And like they had this castle, and they brought out tour buses. You were smoking on the bus, everything, you know. It was just, you know, it was the Wild West out there, you know, people getting high on the bus. I mean, the tour bus, that's kind of crazy. I know it doesn't sound like much now, but back in those days in a foreign country, it was. And so they took us out there to the Cincy Seed place. And that when we got there, walking around the top of this like 16th century castle, kind of like a blockhouse, at the top was a guy dressed in a trifold hat with a mask over his eyes, you know, like a cloth so you could just see his eyes. And he was walking around kind of like being a guard or something, you know. Now he's dressed in period clothing from the 1600s. So we go inside there. We're met at the door by other, well, they were like serfs and you know, at that time period, because everything was like when hemp was a heyday there in Holland. And everything was, all the clothes were made out of hemp for the people walking around with trays of Jack Herrera, because that's what won it that year. And first year that Jack Herrera seed strain won, Jack was with us. It was really quite an event. They had a guy there playing those recorders. Did you ever play recorders as a child? You know, he was playing 2 of them, one in each nose. It was amazing. Yeah, it was just amazing how he was doing that. So, and then they had different rooms where they were breeding seeds and stuff like that. And it was just they had a wheelbarrow full of seeds with a goddess sitting in it, and you know, it was really quite a good scene. But then after that, it got too busy, and they stopped doing the Cannabis Castle tours because they had so much seed sales, and you know, that's really what happens. Is they got big on the seed sales. That's the way a lot of people made their money initially. Because you know, you buy it from a grower for €1 a seed, and you sell it for 10 cents for €10 or €5 a seed, and you make money that way. That's the way Soma made it. That's the way, you know. Soma was a good guy to me. He helped me out there. You know, Soma seed strains like New York City Diesel, Lavender. You ever hear of those seeds? Okay. Yeah. What are you smoking there, man? You look like you're high. What are you smoking?
I'm just smoking a little bit of what was left on the tray. There could be a few different things. I'm still smoking on quite a bit of samples from the last event that I went to there at Mendota, Michigan. I was gifted quite a few samples from some great folks, some great weed nerds, and then Met No Dope. I was hanging out with them, and as you travel, I'm sure in the cannabis industry, you see a lot of great cannabis. You're gifted a lot of great cannabis, but not always can you travel with that great cannabis. So they kind of gifted me a little bit of cannabis before they left on Sunday. So I had a nice little gift there from the festival. So I got some headband. I'm not sure. And that's one thing I'm always upset about is when you're gifted, people gift you stuff, but they don't necessarily gift, write their name on it. I know who this was: Banana Daddy, Thunder Dan, and
Nice.
so Lima Rio. This is Thunder Dan too,
Lima
but
Rio, huh?
oh
Lima Rio.
yeah,
Where's how
pretty
can you
good.
tell what strain it is? It sounds like delicious though. Some of these, is it indica or sativa?
Well, I believe the Lamarillo is an indica.
Oh,
Right,
nice.
right off the top.
Yeah. So
Everything's a hybrid these days, so you know what I mean. There's no one or the other. It's pretty much all hybrid,
yeah, for
subject
sure.
to you, I
Absolutely.
guess.
Yeah, yeah, like that's why I was saying that that's why the Arian went with the seed strain hunters to go look for the landrace seed strains so that they can start back breeding and start all over because you can only mix so many. There's like a dozen. I quote Robert Connell Clark, and there's only like 12 of them, and those have been crossed up so many times, So landrace seeds strains that they know of.
As much as I'd like to really see a lot of that, and I'm an advocate for, preserving genetics, slowing down things and preserving genetics. Uh, we're in an industry where you've kind of already kind of hit into it, where money can be a shitty implement. You know what I mean? So even I've said it myself as a cultivator. It's hard to grow a good sativa, which most land races are. A lot of land races are good quality, long flowering time sativa. It takes a real connoisseur to want to put that time into something with a flowering time like that. Now, once you kind of put money, the thought of money into it, you know what I mean? It's harder to justify growing something that long other than a great effect when you can flip a room 2 to 3 times and get, you know what I mean? Three
Right,
times the
right.
cannabis out of that hybrid versus that long-term flower sativa. But although I believe that's where the fun cannabis lies, you know what I mean? That's where the laughy stuff, that's where the real racy stuff, that's, a lot of good cannabis is in that long flowering time cannabis, but nobody wants to fuck with it. Why? Money.
Well,
Unfortunately,
that's the thing.
that's
Totally. That's it. That's why those long flowering things like Acapulco Gold, Panama Red, those equatorial plants. That's why they fell from favor with the outdoor smugglers. Because it took so long, 15 weeks to flower. And you can't have a crop out there in the Mexican sun in 15 weeks. You got it. So that's why Mexican green bud became Mexican red hair. I mean, sorry, became the smuggler's choice back then, or the grower's choice, because they could grow like 2 crops and get it in. But that was the trouble with them there in Holland, is like they'd try to get 3 crops, and they'd take the clones and flower them for 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks, for 2 weeks, and then do the rest of it 14 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever. So that was I think the spider mites were a problem in that country too. They were like almost systemic in the plant itself. They were like in the plant when you got them, and genetically they were like already in the plant. Which I know that sounds silly and impossible. They were just in it. I don't know. Spider mites are such problematic little insects, I guess, for lack of a better word. But Do they have that? Do they have that russet mite out where you are?
Yes, that the russet mite is everywhere, everywhere. It's a, at some point, I question that as well. How that stuff gets spread. Well, we're leading back to money type of thing. Your local people that are and some of these bigger companies, let's say the Hawthorne Group, stuff like that, are your soil companies. Who's to say a lot of this shit that we fight off doesn't get spread by some of
Oh,
these larger groups that are helping us out. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful circle for them.
right, exactly. Yeah, well, yeah, you get the russet mites, you got to burn your house, man. I tell you, it's like they're just so insidious. You can't get them out of. It's tragic. But no, my roommate grew some really nice stuff here, and he used the LED lights. And I'm not a really big fan of LED lights, but he lights, but he did a pretty good job on it. So I don't know if you can see it.
Nice.
Yeah,
What is it? What culture?
some kind of cream passion gorilla or something like that. So he got it from a clone. It's a nice thing. It's your weed gets you higher when you grow it yourself because it knows what it picks up the vibe, what you want. That's why everybody thinks they grow the best weed and they grow their own because it may not be the best weed, but it's the best for them because they put all that love into it. You ever grown weed and not love your plant? I mean, right? Seriously. Yeah.
No, your garden definitely always reflects your life. You know what I mean? The garden for me is the happy place and the filter, but unfortunately, man, that filter is the filter. It's a bioremediator. It pulls the bullshit out of the ground and you. And if you're going through a shitty point in your life, even though the garden is your zen place, that garden will reflect it if you're not, in the right kind of state of mind when you're in the garden, for sure.
Oh, right, for sure, absolutely, for sure. That's that's why I always thought that somebody wanted to do a real healing thing. They could put 6 or 10 plants in the room, and people could just come in there and hang out for an hour. Build about an hour or whatever. And they could just feel the vibe of the plant in there. Just pick up the vibe that the CO2. I mean the O2 coming off of them. The terpenes, everything. Because all that's such a special plant. I mean, that's that's where the Hindus believe it came from the plant, the sacred plant, ganja, on the river Ganges. Said Krishna was being a really vengeful god, wreaking havoc upon all humans. And so they sent him Shiva. And Shiva, and the cannabis plant. So Shiva was a group from the Ganges, where everybody goes there for the Kumbh Mela. Everybody a million people try to get in this one spot in the river. And it's really quite phenomenal. I know it comes every 10 years or something. But so that's where ganja came from. That's what and they believe that soma, the milk, was just hemp seed or cannabis seed and milk from the plant. And that's what's the Rig Veda, the oldest book in the world, which arguably talks about soma, which is the elixir from cannabis. It heals the sick, strengthens the muscles. There's a whole poem about it. I'm sorry, I don't know it right completely, and so that's where the cannabis elixir came from. They milked it before they knew they could really smoke that stuff. Because that early stuff wasn't that good, I think. It was just, I don't think it was that good to smoke. It was real hemp, CBD, CBN, no THC, maybe THC, but they would just put in a big teepee kind of tarp like Logan and go in there and smoke it like in the early days in Russia. and what's now Russia. But that's where they found the first people that were really using it, like in these sensors. You know, that was pretty good, yes. But can you imagine smoking yourself like that? That would be just tough.
So I don't know. The use of cannabis is still kind of question mark. I'd seen some a documentary, a short little documentary, kind of taking it really far back in China. Is 3,000 years use over there, which kind of precedes a lot of the stuff I had heard. So do you really think it was that weak? I mean, I've heard, kind of same thing you're talking about, them putting it on hot rocks and almost like vaping the room, you know what I mean? But it seemed like it would take a good amount of cannabis, of shitty cannabis, you know what I mean? You're a trooper. That's a true stoner right there, because I back in the day, man, I fucking smoked seeds to try to get high at one point. And it takes a lot of fucking seed. So I can't imagine going, man, we're all out of the good stuff, man. Get that hemp in there. Keep loading it in. And just...
Yeah, that's really what they probably did. But, and plus, they don't have that really good cultivation techniques. It was just broadcast the seed, not just like take and grow every little plant like it's a special little plant. They just broadcast the seeds, which didn't cross pollinate, which everything gets all seedy and smelly. And so, but maybe it was just so much THC and our CBN, because that's what that stuff degrades to: CBG, CBN, CBD. And oh yeah, that would be just excellent. Can you imagine? I guess you wouldn't get lung cancer. Sorry. Sarcasm. Can you smell it? Sorry. Okay.
So, man, again, you've had with the long history of just looking at cannabis through the lens. I'm sure you've seen a lot of cool shit, both, surprising, amazing flowers. I'm sure you've have quite the journey, you've seen through that lens.
Yeah.
And by the way, right off before you get started with the journey you've kind of seen from behind the lens, what is your favorite camera? What ones has been your favorite cameras to shoot with?
Nikons, of course. I belong to the Nikon professional service, so they'll send you any kind of gear for free for 2 weeks, provide you're a real journalist, But Nikon, whether it's Nikon or Canon, but these new, what do you call them? You carry them in your back pocket. These phones, they're good cameras too. I mean, it's like, what's the best camera you got? The one that you got in your hand, and that's just the way it is. I mean, some of the stuff that this camera could do, my Nikons couldn't do. I wore out 2 D3s, and that was last time I spent a lot of money on camera gear. But the lenses are where you spend your money, because the bodies get upgraded, but those lenses and those lens dynamics and the lens math you can't change. And so, but back in the day, there was, when you were a photographer like that, you had to take your own film and make sure that your film was right, the exposure was right, everything. It wasn't no fucking around. It wasn't like looking at chimping on the back of a camera right now and seeing it before you still got the shot. It was with film, and that was expensive, and you could fuck up and lose the whole. Yeah, I saw a photographer there. It was his last gig, last time and I got the job, but he lost the list for all his shoots. He shot all the dope, all the photos and everything. He was a meticulous guy, and he lost his sheet that he lost it with all his numbers on it. Oh, he was insane. It was so bad. I felt so sorry for him, Andre Grossman. He was He's really the master there. Lawrence Cherniak. You ever read those books? The great books of Ashish. Those books. They're a great book. Lawrence Cherniak. He's the guy that wrote those books. He was there in the 70s. He traveled all over Europe and India shooting. We should get him on the show too. Talk to him. He'd be a good guy. And then Brian Yon, he lived in New York, so he was mostly the house photographer there in New York, as well as Andre Ghostman. It must be getting late there. You might have to do this again sometime because I'm gonna pass. I've talked too much. I usually don't talk as much, and that's the thing. Is maybe we can finish this another time. If that's all right. It's just been too short.
Yeah. No, I'm happy. I'm grateful for whatever I get. That's bottom line. This whole thing is about you and your story, and I always like to make my guests, or try to make my guests, as comfortable as possible, because like you said, I would much rather have you leave on a good note and come back, you know what I mean, versus make this a horrible experience for anybody. But
this has been a wonderful
it
experience.
is.
I want to thank you for having me. I'm just running out of, well, I don't talk so much sometimes, Sometimes if it's true, it's not bragging, but after a while, it's like, there's a few stories, about bands that stole the cannabis cup from backstage. The Fun-Loving Criminals one time stole the cannabis cup from backstage, and they were like, I waited 15 years to get that back. But anyway, yeah, it's crazy. But I want so maybe again sometime here soon, and I'll have some more stories that maybe formatted a little different, like about when I went to the first and only time I ever went to Hooters was I went with the Merry Pranksters. We were on tour with them for the grandfather tour from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame there in Ohio to Toronto, and we stopped at the Fish Show and a couple other places to. That was when really they had Royal Mounted Police that were playing Secret Agent Girl there. That's another story though. I'll have to.
Chat's going, these are the stories we want to hear. And that's exactly, I have to agree. These are the stories we want to hear. There's so much stuff that happens behind the scenes and stuff like that. Perspectives on, your version of what happens. So, we'd love to hear these stories, 100%, 100%. We would love to hear your stories. So anytime you're ready, we're here.
Okay. I'm good for about an hour or so, but I really appreciate you having me here tonight. So
anytime. And please keep us in mind. I'm ready for all those stories, for sure. It sounds like a lot of fun and crazy times that we'd love to hear about. You asked me if I've traveled. Unfortunately, I haven't traveled a lot, man. I live vicariously through a lot of these stories. You know what I mean? And I think other people do too.
Oh, I see. It's true. You go out there and, there is no good or bad. It's just for the experience. That's really, there is no good experience or bad experience. It's just the experience. On which side you stand on that coin, it's how you interpret the situation. I know this kind of sounds kind of optimistic and pessimistic at the same time. All right, man. I'll just, how do you punch out of this? Do you just, you're gonna cut me
Well,
out?
a couple of things before you go, sir.
Oh, okay.
If you could just give me a couple of minutes, please.
Please, sir. Go
before
ahead.
you
You
go.
got all the time. I'm just, you talk for a little
Yeah.
bit. That'll be much easier.
Yeah, basically how things go around here is I would love to do a one-on-one with you anytime you'd like. But since you've done this, anything counts. Like I said, 10 minutes, hour, whatever. You have earned your right to come hang out anytime you'd like. So that Zoom link that I had sent you is always good, my friend.
Oh,
Anytime that
thank
you
you.
see like there's a Weed Nerd World in the title, if you're up and want to hang out, smoke, be a part of what we're doing, grab that damn phone. You know what I mean? The
All
world
right.
has kind
That'll
of
be great.
changed in a lot of aspects. We would
Oh,
love to
thank you.
hear the stories of your, you know what I mean? So whenever you want to come hang out, doors open at this point, my friend.
All right. Well, thank you
So
so much. That'll be great.
I completely understand it that first times can be a little awkward sometimes, but I hope that you had a good experience tonight. One other
I had a
thing I'd
great
like
time.
to get from you before you go is a silly little thing I call the sound bite. And basically, my version of it would be, hey, this is Eagle, and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 662. I think I got that right. Yeah, I did. So, whenever you're ready, I'm
This
ready,
is
my friend.
622 on the 662 radio show episode.
Right on. Right on. And again, thank you for your time, man. I greatly respect it. It's the most valuable thing we have in this life. And I hope to hear more about your time in the cannabis world. So with that being said, my friend, would you like to say goodbye to anybody or give any shout outs on your way out?
Maybe our favorite girl, Cass Sativa. Hopefully she'll win that Maxim. Vote for her at the Maxim Girl of the Year. I think she can win it. But yeah, that's old Cass. Cass. She's a good girl, right?
Oh yeah, she is an awesome
she's
girl.
she's a veteran too. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, you can vote for her on Facebook. So anyway, all right, brother. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, my friend. With
All
that
right.
being said, thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you, my friend, for introducing yourself into the community. Hopefully, you guys will come hang out in the Weed Nerd World here in a few minutes. We'll be getting that going. So empty your bladder, fill your tray, and get ready to come hang out in the Weed Nerd World. For those of you that aren't going to hang out, thank you for your time. Don't forget to do something nice for somebody. Random acts of kindness do save lives. Thank you, my friend, one last time for coming to hang out. Hopefully, it's
Thanks so
real
much.
soon before we get to talk again soon.
All right. I enjoyed it. Thank you.